So the next presentation is covering something that was already addressed by the feedback from the site meeting on ETSO. It's DOA for ETSO cases, and Olivier Tribou will do the presentation. So the floor is yours, Olivier.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Olivier Tribou. I'm a DOA team leader. As you can see, this morning I put my special voice. This is normally the voice I use for findings level 1. Use it as well for some workshops. So I will be talking about DOA for ETSO. Here is a short table of content, and I start straight away with the problem. So what's the problem? We see in part 21 that if you want to demonstrate your capability, you have two ways. Either as an organization you go for an AP DOA, or you go for a full DOA. And when it comes to ETSO, you need to have an AP DOA. The thing is that it applies as well to companies already holding a full DOA. So it means that you have a full DOA. Still, if you want to do ETSO, you need to get an AP DOA. And we have 30 companies then having both approvals. So we received requests from you guys to do something about it and to be able to demonstrate your capability for ETSO by holding a DOA. So what we see as advantages for you is the simplification of the management of your procedures, because you have only one handbook instead of two. You get a slight cost decrease, because whenever you change something in your system, you just need to tell us once and not twice. And again, when you manage your system on a daily basis, because you have only one set of procedures, then it's easier for you. We also see that it has increased business opportunities, because once you get a full DOA, you can also do the installation, which is not the case when you do when you have only an AP DOA. Well, for some you can, but if you go to more complex projects, you cannot do the installation. So the way we see it, so the way we have built this new policy is the following. In 2018, companies holding both approvals, so having already an AP DOA and a DOA, can merge the two approvals. Next year, what we propose is that the current AP DOA holders can migrate to a full DOA. Then 2020, as a new ETSO applicant, you can choose either you go for an AP DOA or a full DOA. And 2020, 2021, we may even make the DOA mandatory for some ETSOs. And we put some examples here: dynamic seats, complex avionics, and so on and so forth. So this is the long-term strategy. However, for this last change, we would need to change part 21. So here I put some slides on the high-level process. So if you are interested, this is basically what you need to do. So you send a Form 82. It's a significant change to your DOA. And in the meantime, you tell us that you want to surrender your AP. Then there are a number of checks that will be needed on your side, and we will see that on the next slide. On our side, obviously, we will do some checks on what you've updated. And at the end, like any significant change, we issue a significant change report. We update your terms of approval, and then there will be the revocation of the AP DOA. So this is obviously more detailed and very small, so I will not go to the details now, but you can use it later on as a reference. It basically tells you everything you need to update. So obviously you need to update your handbook by removing reference to your AP DOA. You need to update your marking procedures. You know that marking for ETSO is different than marking at aircraft level. Same goes for classification. We have different sets of criteria. So if you want to merge everything in your DOA, you need to have specific procedures. And new thing, if you want to use a DOA for ETSO, then obviously you need CVEs. For the time being, you don't need CVE on ETSO. If you want to use your DOA, obviously you need CVEs. The ISM function needs to be working as well on ETSO. And finally, you need to oversee your suppliers. Now, what would be the impact on the surveillance? You know that we have surveillance planning for your DOAs. Then it means that we will include the ETSO activities into the surveillance planning. So we will perform audits on ETSOs with the help of our PCM ETSOs, but also it could trigger significant change. And again, we will make sure that your ISM, so your independent system monitoring function, covers the ETSO as well. And that's basically it. So it's very short. I just wanted to give you some highlights on the process. It's on a voluntary basis, so only if you are interested. And we made it based on a request coming from you, from the industry. Now, we have already a success story. And except if you have already questions, I would like to call on stage Muriel Menudier and Jean-Manuel Ferreira from Zodiac Aerosafety Systems. This was the first company who did the merge. And well, they will share their experience with us on how it went. I hope it will be a positive experience. And also, it will be a collector presentation because it's the last presentation with the Zodiac name.
Very collector. I'm Jean-Manuel Ferreira. I'm the chief of airworthiness of Zodiac Aerospace. And tomorrow will be Safran Aerosystem. So this is a collector. We'll present, I will manage, and I will do this emergence. The content is why we merge, what is the problem, what are the advantages, and which methodology have been used, and now, after the conclusion, what are the next steps? Who is Zodiac Aerospace System? We have two main activities, is the de-icing systems and fuel systems. Okay, the fuel systems is a complete from the fuel cells to the engine. Is contained ventilation, fuel cells, and in the fuel cells we have an ETSO. It means we provide two kinds of certification. One for the fuel cell is managed by STC, and one for the blader is managed by ETSO. And the feedback from the field, it can have some confusion when you do a change and when you do some certification, which process shall be used, who shall sign the document. This is the question of the field, and if the field if its feedback is very interesting, and we need to reply. This is an example of what happened. For example, the puncture resistance, we have a requirement on the CS ETSO. He asked, we should perform a puncture test with an acceptance criteria to 50 pounds. What asked the CS 27 and 29? He do the same. He asked, we should perform a puncture test with the same procedure, but the criteria is different. You can imagine we have the same requirements, two different processes. In one, you use ETSO handbook, another one you use STC handbook. It means in one case we have a CVE, in another case we have no CVE. It can confuse and have a lot of stress in the team. Why we change? Yesterday, we have two handbooks with a border between APDOA and DOA. Now we have only a single DOA which covers STC and ETSO. But why we do this? When we have discussed with the field, we have asked what are the advantages, what are the inconvenients. To be honest, the team asked We don't see any inconvenience. Never. We need only see advantage on this kind of harmonization. Why? Because we have only single process, same way for STC, ETSO. It means less confusion, less stress in the staff. We simplify the training because we have only one handbook. It means it's clear what is the process to follow. We simplify the documentation. We have only one handbook, that's all. We have a single CCL instead to have one for the ETSO, one for the STC. And we have also harmonized the surveillance, because on the ETSO we have no ESM surveillance. But both, if it's ETSO or STC products, it fly. It shall follow the same rules. And with this mergence, we have the same airworthiness culture. And the last point is very important. It's more easy to have a bridge between ETSO and STC if we involve, since the beginning, the main actors we are dealing during the STC. It means CV, Airworthiness Office. To do this job, we have to integrated team with engineering, quality, and airworthiness. And Muriel will explain which methodology have been used for this fusion.
Thank you, Jean-Manuel. So a few words about the methodology that we used. We started, as Jean-Manuel described it, with 2 compliance checklists and 2 sets of handbooks and procedures, one for the DOA and one for the AP DOA. We analyzed in parallel these 2 compliance checklists and identified what was common and what was different amongst the 2 referentials. And then we came up with just a single DOA documentation based on the DOA handbook, DOA procedures, which now embed just a few specific templates and a few specific criteria to deal with ETSO. So this is just based on the differences that we need to maintain between the DOA and, well, the STC process and the ETSO process, but that's just a few points remaining, as for example, change classification. As you know, that classification criteria are different at aircraft level or equipment level. The management of minor changes. As in the ETSO world, we have anticipated minor changes, and this is where the privilege applies. And also, we introduced some new CV technical scope to deal with the ETSO equipment. All in all, this process took about 3 months. I would say around 100 working hours to do this, and we ended up with an updated DOA certificate. So on the slide, on the right side of the slide, where you see a white area, we should have the DOA certificate, but I'm just going to show you the last page, which is this update. So this is the last page of the terms of approval, which now embeds the ETSO authorization. Okay, so this is an additional page to the TOAs. So what's coming next? Jean-Manuel mentioned a whole bunch of advantages that we see in having this merger between the DOA and the EP DOA. Now we probably have further candidates, and within the Zodiac scope, which will become the Safran scope in December, the next ones might be the Zodiac Seats UK, who have both DOA and AP DOA for seats and cabin interiors activities. And now we would like to revert it back to Olivier and to EASA with some further questions to take the best benefits from this merger. We would like to better understand how the ETSO activity will be used and assessed in the DOA performance assessment. And second question, we have seen yesterday in the future upcoming updates of Part 21 that there might be some additional privileges for DOAs. We would like to know if there's going to be a new privilege for the approval of ETSO and the granting of ETSO authorizations. So this is the end of our presentation. Thank you, Olivier, for giving us the opportunity to present this story. I think it was a very positive experience for us, and we are very proud to have been this pilot project and to deal with the EASA on this important topic. Thank you.
Well, yep, thank you very much, Muriel and Jean-Manuel, for the very well prepared presentation. I don't remember we agreed on the questions, but thank you. Actually, we can't see the questions anymore. Maybe can we move backwards? Yep, thanks. So, for the first question, so yeah, it's very relevant. We know we have to integrate the feedback and the performance on ETSO projects within the overall evaluation of the DOA performance. And I'm really happy to see that Raphael is in the room, because as he did this excellent presentation yesterday on the dashboard, I guess he will be in charge of integrating ETSO performance into the dashboard. But yeah, it's work in progress, so we are working on it. For the second one, well, it's a bit more tricky. We understand where Zodiac comes from, and it's true that by similarity with the future privileges on major changes and STCs, we could think about something similar. However, for the ETSO, it's quite specific because a major change to an ETSO leads to actually a new ETSO. So it could be quite challenging to create a privilege out of it, but I mean, this is still something we can discuss.
Yeah, what we discussed in the site meeting on Monday for ETSO was also this topic. And it's right, Part 21 says a major change to an ETSO leads to a new ETSO authorization. But what we could consider is the level of involvement of the agency for DOAs with a high performance, etc., is zero. So you just do everything and we just issue the approval. By that, we would respect Part 21. But give you an incentive and something where you benefit from going to a DOA and work with a DOA on ETSO projects. But it's not decided, it's just some of the ideas that we discussed with industry in which way we could go.
And also as a reminder, you've seen yesterday the presentation from Michel Gerhardt, the rulemaking tasks planning is already quite dense, so this would require a change of Part 21 and would need to be included in this rulemaking activities. So even, I mean, we can think about it, but that would take time for sure. So the first question we don't see on the screen, the first question from Slido is, so I'm reading out loud. Current presentation is about transition of APDOA for ETSO to DOA for ETSO. What is the arrangement for current DOA who wanted to cover also the ETSOA scope? So actually the current presentation was about a company having both APDOA and DOA and merging everything into the DOA, so getting rid of the AP. So this is what it was about. And it applies similarly for companies having today a DOA and willing to extend its scope to cover ETSO. So you would need to apply for a significant change. You would need to appoint the right CVEs, make sure that the ISM function would work on ETSO, make sure your classification procedures are updated, your marking procedures are updated, and so on and so forth.
Then we had a question related more to the rulemaking discussions that we had yesterday. Currently, under Part 21, only the ETSO authorization holder is allowed to introduce changes at equipment level. Everybody else who wants to modify the equipment has to do the approval at aircraft level. The question is whether a modification of the rule could be foreseen to change this and to allow also other DOAs to introduce changes at equipment level. That is clearly something that would need to go into the rulemaking program. If you as industry see a need and a benefit for this, make the proposal, it will be taken on board, it will be assessed like any other proposal as well. But as Olivier said, and as you've seen yesterday, the rulemaking program is pretty much full already, so it will take some time before this will be processed.
Okay, there is the next one. Next question is, I think, a very important point. Question is, what are the issues with APDOA to manage complex ETSO that would necessitate to go to a mandatory DOA? Okay, this is a very good question. We see it as a risk-based approach. We think that, and you know, with Part 21 today, we have one ETSO that today already requires a full DOA, and that's APU. And similarly, we think that other complex ETSO would require also a full DOA. This is just as a risk-based approach, first. Then second, we see that there is a trend in the course of an ETSO project to include already integration requirements. And it's difficult to cover that with the current system. Whether, on the opposite, if you have a DOA, then you can already make the next step of covering a number of requirements at installation at aircraft level, because you could even go for the STC installing your equipment. So this is the rationale behind. But again, this would require a change of Part 21 in any case, meaning there would be a rulemaking task, there would be consultations, you would have the possibility to voice your concerns, if any. So we are not yet there. So next question is, the 30 companies having both DOA and APDOA today. And the question is whether merging is mandatory or not, and for sure it's not mandatory at all. Again, it's purely voluntarily. It's on a voluntarily basis.
Just one more question. We have ADOAs outside Europe that were issued an approval for ETSO, and the question was whether they could convert to DOA as well. With the same scope of work, limited to ETSO, that should be possible, but that is something that we need to define further. We haven't discussed it internally yet, because DOAs for non-EU organizations are limited to minor changes, minor repairs, normally. So that's something we would have to check further.
The next one is also very important. So once you have merged AP, DOA, and DOA, question is whether the DOA can use its privileges to classify changes and approve minor changes and so on and so forth. So just to be clear, we don't change anything to the existing privileges. Again, Part 21 is not modified. So what you could do before on your ETSO, as being an AP, you will still be able to do under your DOA, but not more. Meaning, you can classify and you can approve the anticipated minor changes, as the AP to DOA can do today, but not more. So you can only approve the anticipated minor changes that are part of your handbook.
Okay, any questions from the floor on the two presentations? The microphone is on its way.
Thank you very much. Scandinavian Avionics. I've placed a question on Slido, but it was not accepted. Thank you.
It was out of scope of the presentation.
Right.
You know
okay.
that.
But I couldn't find anybody better. We're talking here about, to a certain extent, about ETSO and the implication on the STC integrator. Now, my question was in regards to ADs. Reason is that over the past 24 months, we probably have been involved in 5 to 6 ADs on equipment level, ETSO equipment level. And this is becoming more and more a burden for us because it's a non-recoverable cost, and we have to apply on top of the ETSO AD. We also have to do an AD corrective action on the SDC level to integrate this new modified unit, whether it is a software change or any other change. And this is to a certain extent for us a non-recoverable cost. And my question was purely whether EASA could consider to exempt or kind of reduce the application costs for an SDC holder once he has to change his SDC because of an AD on equipment level.
Well, thank you for the question. Indeed, it's a bit aside from the technical discussion, but it is a very important topic for sure. I think you were part of the new fees and charge draft regulation consultation process. Today, to be clear, at our level, we are bound by the existing fees and charge regulation and Part 21. So we have to follow the rules. Whether we like it or not is not the issue. Having said that, in the consultation process for the new fees and charge, well, there were thousands of comments, of discussions, of iterations. It is still under finalization with our fees and charge team. I do not know in detail because it's, you can imagine, the complete fees and charge regulation redrafting is a significant project, and there is a full-time team working on that. I hope that you raise this point into the consultation period for the future fees and charge regulation. And I'm sorry, that's basically what we can answer for today, because apart from that, in the existing regulatory framework, we have absolutely no leeway, no flexibility. We understand your concern from a modifier from a TSO standpoint. Now the rule is there, and as you know, in EASA, we are bound to strictly follow the rule. Exemption is a word we are not allowed to use. I'm partly joking here, but you know, even deviation is extremely sensitive and has to be raised into a very framed environment following a very rigid process. So I have not much more to answer for today, except that under the future fees and charge, we can check what is under development, and let's see what we will get in the end.
All right, thank you. I think we will move to the next topic. I just wanted to thank again Zodiac Aerosafety System here with us, so Muriel Menudier and Jean-Manuel Ferreira for their presentation. And I wish you all a nice end of workshop.